Yes, your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to a snippet from the Off the Chain episode 28 that occurred over the weekend. A 3-hour live stream, man, longest I've had, but it was well worth it. One snippet, one area of this live stream that I think is very important to highlight. We had a caller come in. She was from Philly. She's a debt bond trader out there in Philly, one of the firms out there, and she revealed some crazy insider news regarding what's going on behind the scenes in this financial market. There are things going down, people, that you wouldn't believe it. There is some serious issues with corporate debt. Yields are blowing out to levels that are unsustainable, and so she's giving us some candid remarks regarding what's going on and how the Fed knows nothing. They don't know what they're doing. They're lost. They're scrambling. They pretty much lost control of this whole situation. So stay tuned. Get your pen and pad out. You may want to take notes on this, or at least watch it twice. But before we start, if you guys find these types of videos informative, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and click that bell to receive more videos like this. Try to go to the next person. Carl on the line. It's your boy Crypto Blood. Who's calling in?
Yo, what's up?
What's going on? Who's calling in?
Hey, this is a trader from Philly. Can you hear me?
We got a female on the line. About time. About time.
About time.
What's going on?
Yeah, so I work at a firm down on the Wall Street, Philly, whatever you want to call it, like okay. Street, on Market Street. And this is going to be a more technical kind of conversation related to bonds.
Yes.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
I work with people.
Did you hear me talking about the high yield, the debt, the bond market yields blowing out?
I did not. What did you say?
I just said that was happening this weekend, and maybe that was why Jerome Powell came out and dropped interest rate, the Fed rate 50 basis points.
Right, and then the initial response out of equities was like a no confidence kind of vote. Yeah. You know, like that's what's fucking creepy about this. Yeah, so
what's going on in the bond market that you can tell us a little bit more about?
I'll tell you, about 6 weeks ago, our bond trading desks were liquidating out of emerging markets and high risk corporate. About 6 weeks ago, they started liquidating out of that shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, what is it looking like now? Like, are yields really blowing out to the point where you're gonna have some fallen angels? Are you gonna have some fallen angels?
You know how normal mutual funds like place out people with the 60-40 bullshit? In their funds.
Bonds.
So most people were kind of taught decade after decade that bonds is a safe haven.
Yep.
It's not right now. Like this is kind of, we're in that moment where everyone is piling in and then the rates are going to spike and blow them out.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And I'm just trying to think, like, what would be the catalyst to rate spiking and blow them out, right? And I think it's going to be some sort of fiscal stimulus from the Treasury. I am not sure if you understand the plumbing behind the POMO, the SOMA, and the Repo. Like I'm not quite sure like what you really understand with all of that.
Yep.
So the reason why rates are just like bottoming, making historic levels down is because bonds, okay, when I say bonds, I'm saying U.S. Treasuries.
Okay. Because
when the U.S. Treasuries out there in the secondary market, there's nothing. So all these primary dealers, institutional level traders are fighting each other to buy up these U.S. treasuries. So right now, the bond market is acting like a commodity squeeze.
So let me ask you something: is it actually illiquid?
It is.
That's what I heard.
We're also experiencing and seeing that there is a credit freeze in Europe right now. Wow. And I don't know. Okay, look, nobody knows why the repo shit started happening back in September and why it's continuing. And then it's being oversubscribed right now. Nobody knows why. And we're going to figure this shit out in about 4 months, I think.
Why 4 months?
But I have a couple conspiracies, though. my two conspiracies why this is happening is that there's some serious shit going down with the European banks. And I think it has something to do with Deutsche.
Yeah. Go figure. Right.
And then my other theory is that the U.S. Treasury they are not auctioning off enough bonds to support the system, because now you have the Federal Reserve doing POMO, and they're buying out. They're buying out all those 30-year, 10-year, 2 years, 7 years, and they're taking it out of the market.
And
so what's happening is. Yeah.
So question. So is that why they were trying to float out there a 50-year, and they're trying to get more? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
And no one wants to bite though, right?
Exactly. Wow. So you hear that shit floated out that, oh, we're going to issue out these 50 years, 100 years. Everybody laughed at like the 100 years and scoffed at that shit, right? But then the 50-year proposal, everyone's like, yeah, okay, we can maybe jump on that. But then they're like, we're going to bring back the 20 years. We haven't issued the 20. Starting May, Mnuchin has been really quiet about this. I haven't gotten the details on it. We're all kind of waiting for it here, from the inside. But it's going to be issued out in May. And we don't know if that money is going to be taken away from the other Treasury auctions, or if they're going to somehow get they're going to budget in more stimulus to fund that. We don't know. We don't know how the Treasuries is going to happen. The 20 years is going to happen.
This sounds like the end.
Yeah, this is the end of the road.
Why?
This sounds like the end.
Dude, it's not the end. We're in like phase 2, all right? And there's 5 fucking phases to this.
$9 billion.
We're in phase 2 right now. This is where $1 million. Europe is going into disarray. This is where we're gonna somehow pump up and stimulate like the debt market, and the dog and pony show is going to continue to go on as the rest of the emerging markets are fucking imploding, speaking from the debt market side, the bonds.
Wow. I think that's what Mugabe thought in Zimbabwe.
Who is Mugabe?
He was the president in Zimbabwe, and when they started rolling out like the 1 trillion note and the 10 trillion note, it all sounded like it was going to work, and then they said, hey, we're sending the 100 trillion note to presses, and that's when the bloom was off the rose. But I tell you, I tweeted this out the other day. I said, why would anyone loan money at 1.2% for 30 years to a nation of people who can't do math? There was that New York Times opinion, and she said, hey, look, if Bloomberg had just given everybody the money that he spent on his campaign, we'd all have like $1 million or whatever.
$9 billion.
And, the great
$240
CEO of Shapeshift replied to me. He said, because none of them expect to hold it for 30 years, they assume another buyer will take it. And that's kind of what our whole economy is based on now, is a greater fool theory.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, it's all based on confidence.
Yeah, I got a question for you. Since you're right there on the ground with it, you're ground zero with it, right? Can we go negative? Is that so?
Yes,
I guess my question is: will we try to issue new 20 years to prevent ourselves from going negative? I mean, we're basically there if they do the rate cut, the 75 basis points in 2 weeks. We're there, right? We're at 0.
It's going to coincide. We're going to be dropping the rates, and we're going to be issuing out the 20s, and then there's going to be an increase in the auction with what we have been doing. It's all going to coincide together. That's what's going to happen. So we're kind of doing this Venezuela shit right now, where, like, my CEO, he was sending out mass fucking emails the past 2 weeks. And the first email started with, oh, this is, just panic. It's another Ebola. It's another SARS. It's no big deal. It's just fucking fear-mongering. And then, like, 2 days later, he sends out another fucking mass email saying, all right, these are the levels in the SPX and Dow and NASDAQ. We should find support and buyers here. I think we're going to bottom here. We don't know. And then, like, 3 days later, he's like, hey, on March 11th, everybody needs to join this webinar conference at whatever time, and we're going to have a doctor, a medical professional, to talk about the coronavirus. And then we're going to have a macro economist come out and talk about the supply chain disruption. They're fucking behind the curve, man. They're fucking behind the curve.
This is
but
insane.
The dudes, like, everyone here on the bond desk, like, we've already known this. We're already trading this.
Oh my God. So, like, I think
we're doing a Venezuela kind of thing. I think it's going to be, right now, it's a massive head fake. Everybody's piling into bonds. Like, everyone's going to the safe haven. And then what's going to happen is that there's going to be some huge fucking treasury stimulus package being floated out. And then the rates are going to fucking spike because there's going to be a massive new supply of bonds out there. And it's going to blow them all the fuck out. Anyone that is long and speculating bonds, anyone that is long and speculating bonds, you're fucking wrong. That's my poem.
Well, wow. Thank you for the call. That's some good insight, some insider news there, people. I hope you guys are listening. It may have been above some heads, but you get the gist. We're done. We're done. Venezuela style now. Wow.
Well, and then we're going into the final legs of the equities markets because there's going to be capital flight. Let's fucking talk about the equity side. There's going to be capital flight coming in here because once the fiscal package is being floated out, and then once you have the support on the monetary side, and then maybe the virus or whatever, that bullshit, like, it will be contained, maybe, we'll see, coming out in the next couple months. You got to think, like, this virus thing, it's spreading around the world. It's creating panic, which is kind of covering up the global debt market collapse that was already happening.
This is just
covering up a problem that was already happening.
Or is it exposing it, though? What do you think?
Well, it's exposing it, I think, to traders and very smart investors.
Okay.
But it's also kind of masking and covering it up to, like, the newbie traders and to, like, the average person that tunes into Fox News or CNN, whatever.
You talking about the Robin Hood traders that couldn't log in on Monday?
I'm talking about those. I'm talking about those fucking Tesla 1000, like, those motherfuckers. Like, they don't understand how capital flight works. Like, they don't, like, you know what? listen, if you can find Herbert Hoover's memoirs, find them and read it, because building up to World War II, there was a similar fucking situation going on. And he described it as a bowling ball jumping between nations. And the bowling ball was capital. Because everyone was fleeting out of their nations, trying to find the nation that would hold it strong and not go under during this war of World War II. And that's kind of the situation we're in right now, because China's fucking going bankrupt. They've been going fucking bankrupt for like 6 months. But this virus is like, this virus is the fucking perfect,
right?
Exactly.
They've been doing more repo operations by a long. We're just now catching up to them.
Wow.
Yeah, these dudes, like, over there in China, they've been having local credit, like, type union banks and firms going bankrupt for the last 6 months. And then now that this virus happened, it's like the perfect fucking excuse, right? To kind of, like, expose it and then smooth it over with liquidity. Yeah, that's the shit they're pulling over there. But yeah, like the Herbert Hoover memoirs, he describes the situation is there was actually government insolvencies happening right before World War II. And then the war was the cover-up. Right now, the coronavirus is the cover-up for all of this.
Wow.
This is like a true government insolvency issue that we're dealing with right now. It's already happened in China. I translate and do shit for Latin America. It's already happening in Latin America. It started about a year ago. And now that the coronavirus is on the scene, it's like, oh, we can't let a good situation go to waste. That's the way they're thinking about this. Because, Jerome Powell comes out and says 50-point basis cut because of coronavirus. No, fuck you. It was because the credit system was freezing between us and Europe.
Yeah.
If you look at the chart, pull up the fucking chart with the euro dollar, and then you'll see, what is it, like the 15th or something, right on the date? The euro fucking rallies against the dollar. Why? Why does that happen? Because they knew the fucking the 50 basis points cut was coming. It's just to smooth over the credit freezing. It's still
so you're saying
liquidity.
On the 19th of March, of February? Of February is when?
January. Pull up the chart with the euro dollar.
Yeah,
it was like the 15th. It was like the 15th of January or February. You can see where it V bottoms.
Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. That's February 19th.
19th, okay.
Yep, the V-bond, I see it. Yeah, I see it. So they knew the 50 basis was coming then.
Yeah, the 50 basis point cut isn't to prop up the market.
Let me ask you this.
It's about the credit freezes.
Did they know? So they probably thought the 50 basis point was coming at the March meeting, but he did it a little early. And do you think he's going to do another 75? That's what's being floating around now. Is he going to do 75 at the meeting in 2 weeks?
We're going to be cutting rates like no tomorrow throughout the rest of the year. We're like through into election. I would be surprised if we were sitting at 0.25%.
Wow.
We're going full Japan/Venezuela right now to keep this shit afloat.
So, one of my chat members, thanks for the super chat, Dow Jones and John Hill. John Hill asks, he's asking you, what should we buy as a kind of a retail person? What do we do? I know you can't really give financial advice, but what would you do if you were in our shoes?
What would I do? I mean, it depends on how active of a trader you are, of course. If you're somebody, the most conservative play here is to bet against confidence in government. So that would be gold and silver, of course. That's the only play out there.
So what are your
if you were an active trader, I would be waiting for the next leg down in the indices, USA terms and dollars, and buy that fucking dip, because the indices are going to go back to all-time highs by the end of the year.
Wow. Wow.
Right now, the markets are floundering around like a fish thrown on a boat, because they're trying to figure out a few things. They're trying to figure out how severe is the credit crisis in Europe right now. Will Trump be in or out due to his handling of the virus? And they're trying to price in how many points are going to be knocked off the GDP because of the virus. So is it going to be 2 quarters, 3 quarters? So the market is floundering around crazy because it's trying to figure out those things. It's trying to price that shit out.
And then you got the OPEC meeting that happened earlier this week, and Russia.
Wasn't that great?
Russia was like, wrong. Russia was like, I'm not doing nothing. Nothing.
Yo, we for oil to bottom, we need Qatar to get bombed or some other drone strike on Saudi facilities for oil to bottom out, because if Middle Eastern conflict doesn't happen, oil's gonna fucking drop to 30-something. 30-something. Oil's going straight to 30-something. Unless there's some sort of conflict that happens every fucking time. That was my joke. Okay, so I've traded oil for a while now, and it's been this running kind of meme that, all right, oil's gotten too low, it's hitting 50, 40 something, something's gonna happen in the Middle East. And then sure enough, it fucking happens and spikes it. And then that's when you sell the news. And now we're running into a problem where there's real global demand issues.
Right.
It doesn't matter what they do on the supply side. If the demand side is known to decrease, oil's fucked. So I wouldn't even try to long it here unless you know that there's going to be a bottom put in place.
I mean,
the only way a bottom is going to be put...
It just broke its bottom from 2018. This session on Friday, it broke it, right? So we're going lower for sure. I see what you're saying there. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you about your traditional market. So this is going to be interesting to hear your take on Bitcoin.
Oh, shit.
What do you think about Bitcoin and how it plays into this whole situation?
All right, I got a few thoughts. One, I should give the disclaimer. I have never invested and traded in Bitcoin. However, a lot of my counterparties have and researched into it. So I've kind of sat back on the sidelines and observed.
Okay.
That's my disclaimer.
All right.
So my opinion about Bitcoin is Bitcoin now trades like gold did. Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, NSA tried to take you out there. NSA tried to take you out the game.
I don't know what happened with that.
So, Bitcoin, what is your take on Bitcoin?
Yeah, so before I got cut out, it's trading like gold used to.
Okay.
It's kind of trading on fears and uncertainty, high volatility. Gold used to trade the same way. Now gold only trades on government uncertainty, whether the government's going to be insolvent or not. That's the way gold trades now these days.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin, I don't shill it, to people because personally I've never traded it. I'm not as knowledgeable as I should be on it.
But just looking at it
from observing other people that it says see it. Yeah, I've seen that
from a naked view, like from not touching it, is actually better. Like virgin eyes on the asset. Like, do you see that being another asset class that you'll see Wall Street or some of the debt market people jump into at some point?
I do see, in these times right now, in a pandemic and risk of government insolvency, I do see the price is going to be bid up because a couple years ago, Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies, there was a flood of volume, and you need to investigate where the volume came from. And the most of the volume came from emerging markets because it was them fleeing their own local currency and their distrust in it. So right now it's kind of a gray zone because, perfect example, recently, markets were going down and gold went down. So a lot of people were confused on that. And it's because people that were in the indices, they were getting blown the fuck out and meeting margin calls, so they were liquidating
to cover the margin calls.
Yeah, to meet that. So that's the same thing I would assume that's happening with the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't know how long that, process is going to go on. As if we're gonna talk about forecasts going out 5 years from now, 10 years from now, listen, the open market cryptocurrencies, they're not really gonna exist, in my opinion, because big banks are already in on it, and central banks are already in on it. So, cryptocurrency is going to happen in our, I'm not sure. Have you seen that Justin Timberlake movie? It's called, Time something.
No,
have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, write this down. It's a Justin Timberlake movie. It's called Time something. And the premise of the movie is that encoded into your forearm, there's the currency of what you wage and own. And if you get down to zero, then it shuts off your heart and you die. So it's very dystopian, right?
Yeah.
But it kind of goes along with the cryptocurrency thing where they're trying to take out everybody that transactions in the black markets around the world and to be able to tax them and kind of have a hold on them. And I do think that's coming, most definitely.
So you're seeing central bank issue digital currencies then?
Yeah, that's happening. It's already being drafted. It's in the fucking works. Everyone that's getting into these cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and stuff, thinking this is going to be the people's republic. No, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen unless there's some sort of, I don't know, global revolution that is knowledgeable about all this, which they're not.
Yeah, I don't think a global revolution is going to come because too many people are just dumb. They're sedated.
Exactly.
But my thing is though, so they can't stop Bitcoin though. I mean, they could put regulatory constraints on it, but it looks like they're opening up to it more so than
they're opening up to the technology and the idea of it. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. that's not going to be adopted and fostered by the masses. It's going to be, what's going to be adopted and fostered by the masses is what the government issues out in each nation.
Of course, but
that's my opinion.
But you know, pricing Bitcoin against those newly issued digital currencies, I mean, it's still going to appreciate in value.
So you're saying, okay, so right now though, trading it, sure, I think you could be profitable on the crises at hand. Mm-hmm. But if you want to talk about it being priced against central bank or government cryptocurrencies, mm-hmm. we're talking, this is a whole nother fucking conversation. Okay. Because that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. They're not going to let that happen.
No, they're not going to try. Right. It's going to happen by force. Like, they can't stop cryptocurrencies, though. I mean, the only way they can stop cryptocurrencies.
They can. Sorry.
Listen, the only way they can stop cryptocurrencies is to scare people from using cryptocurrencies.
No, they're the ones that control the systems. They can shut it off and put it on as they want. I mean, we've seen this numerous times throughout history. So, I mean, I know, like, you run kind of like a cryptocurrency kind of show. I don't know. I mean,
what you mean you don't know?
I'm just saying,
blood?
right now, yeah, trade that shit. I think it's profitable right now in these mm-hmm. kind of crises kind of times, because there's going to be a lot of international capital flight looking for safe havens. So I think it's profitable in the meantime, but long term, no. Long term, you know how it is. The institution runs the game. And that's my opinion on that.
All right.
Because I'm already seeing shit drafted, and the independent cryptocurrencies.
You guys got to make up your mind. You know what side of the coin I'm on, people. But it's always good to hear all sides of the conversation. So. It was a
I think, though, depending on how the shit show plays out that we're currently seeing, mm-hmm. I do see a run into some sort of black markets, which has happened before in time. It's been documented. So I'm thinking maybe I can jump on your side of the argument, because black markets have popped up and thrived before, and that's where cryptocurrency would be in play.
Right. So again, it won't. The masses. I actually agree with you. I don't think the masses will, if the governments, central banks around the world decide to, do their own digital currency, and which they are doing. I don't see the masses picking up Bitcoin like that. But I do see Wall Street playing with it. I mean, they've got the underpinnings there now, right? Like the
Wall Street right now, as far as cryptocurrency is going, they're in with
backed.
Oh fuck, man! They're in the World Bank right now. Like, they're going with the Bank of International Settlements, because right now they're trying to cut out LIBOR. Like, LIBOR's fucking dead. They're trying to cut them out.
So LIBOR, when LIBOR was exposed, that was the end of that. The LIBOR fix.
Yeah.
That was kind of the end of the LIBOR.
Like, the way I'm seeing it being drafted on my side is the World Bank isn't on this. LIBOR's fucking dead. Bank of International Settlements wants to get rid of HIBOR and LIBOR. And each nation's going to create their own national cryptocurrency. And it's going to run just like the fiat currencies are running.
Yeah. Okay, one last question, because this is a good one. What is the benefit of doing a digital issue currency from a central bank perspective? Is it that they can control the supply, like, instantaneously? Because other than that, it's the same thing as as what we have now.
It wouldn't benefit at all central banks. It would be the benefit of the government treasuries.
Okay.
Because the government treasuries are the ones that tax collect.
Right.
So it's pulling in new tax revenue from the black markets that already exist. So it would be in the benefit of the governments. Because you have to remember there's a separation, supposedly, between the treasury and the central banks in each government, in each nation, excuse me. Yeah, so the benefit would be for the treasury.
Right? They're independent.
Yeah,
every
supposedly.
Other. We don't listen to anyone else. Yeah, I know.
So, like, when it comes to cryptocurrencies, like, there's really no, in my opinion, of course,
right.
It's not a bad thing or a good thing for central banks. Like, really, they don't give a shit. It really comes down to the treasury and the government, like the treasuries and the governments in each nation. Because because when you're going off into cryptocurrencies, you're trying to get around the inflation and you're trying to get around the taxation in a way. You're trying to get around the money supply manipulation and the rates. So that's like where there's this gray area of fiscal treasury policy and monetary central bank policy. That's the crux of cryptocurrencies, is to get around that. Because you don't want to be a part of it. You don't want your wealth destroyed and being fucked with, right? So really, when it comes down to it, it's the government treasuries that want a hold of this. Mm-hmm. Listen, like I lived in Mexico for some time, and I'm not sure if your listeners know this or understand this, but in these countries, in my experience in Mexico, they have a thriving black market.
Right.
Like I would argue to say about 60% of the money velocity that happens in their economy, 60% of it happens in the black market. Like, I would buy my food, I would buy goods and stuff through Tangies. And that's like tents outside, put up, cash transactions. Nothing that, all that money, none of that is reported to the government at all.
Wow. So
and that's like 60% of their economy.
So let me ask you about Maduro. Not Maduro. He's dead, isn't he? The other guy.
No, Maduro's still there.
Oh, Maduro's still there. The other guy's dead. The previous president of Venezuela. What do you think about the Petro coin? They're trying to do they did their own cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that whole thing. That whole thing is a workaround from OPEC.
Okay.
It's like that coin thing. It's a giant fuck you finger to OPEC. But it's in my opinion, it's not going to last. And by the way, the shit Venezuela's doing, I know this sounds crazy, but I support what their government and people want right now. Because USA tried to instill another puppet leader, and the public said "fuck you"
Guido,
to them.
Guido, whatever. Guado, whatever. Yeah, that didn't work too well.
They don't want that, and I do see a military conflict building right now, and don't be surprised that within this year you see headlines of naval ships are going to Venezuela, because I think it's happening. I mean, they're sitting on one of the world's largest oil reserves,
Right.
They have like right now.
I didn't know they were one of the biggest producers of oil.
No, it's the reserves that they have. It's easily accessible reserves. It's like you don't gotta frack for it and spend all this money. It's easily accessible. But like what he's doing right now, President Maduro, is he did like a stimulus package, sent it out to the farmers in the rural areas, and they kind of have these, I don't know, like soldiers of agriculture. Like that's what's going on in Venezuela right now, because they got fucked from imports being blocked from sanctions, and they were kind of getting starved out from medical supplies and food products. And so the directive that he's taking with his country, which the country majority is fully fucking backing, is that they're gonna like pull themselves up by their bootstraps and do it on their own. And they don't give a shit about the sanctions or whatever that's being placed on them by the Western nations. So I mean, we tried, when I say we, the USA tried to instill some sort of puppet in there, but he got mocked and laughed at and thrown out. So I wouldn't be surprised to see any sort of military conflict building up. I mean, it's been building up for the last 2 years, but I wouldn't be surprised to see real headlines come out within the next year.
All right, there you have it, people. Hope you guys enjoyed that long conversation with the bond trader from Philadelphia. Let me know your thoughts about whether or not central banks really care about Bitcoin or not. This is what she's saying. She believes that, central banks will create their own digital currencies and the masses will just use those. Let me know your thoughts about that, and also the news about the bond market, corporate debt getting out of hand. And this is all why we're seeing the actions taken by the Fed, not to save the stock market, but to save the bond market, the debt market. Leave your comments in the section below and let's have that conversation. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe, and click that bell to receive more videos like this. I'm out of here, people. Holla!